Welcome to our council meeting of 12 November 2024. Um, On roll call, Councilman Brad Hemphill is excused. He called in. We'll go ahead and stand up and do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay, and at this time, please, we're going to have the invocation with Louis Lorenzo Jr.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Louis Lorenzo from Vilas. My son Cree attends Fort Thomas Unified School District. And we're asked to say a invocation. We also want to follow up with a song, a prayer song. These songs have been in our family, our community for centuries. We come from a band that came from the White Mountains, Sholo, Heber area. We also descended in this area. And Whole Valley, our home, a lot of our medicine, our food were from here. So in a way, we survived and sustained ourselves in that way by this Gila Valley that we all call home today. We pray, we always keep our children, our grandchildren, our great grandchildren, we always keep 4 generations in mind as we pray. As leaders, as community leaders, as elected leaders, that's how we pray, going about in prayer to our Heavenly Father.
Here, Gawadan, Yusin Shita, Nanzganashik isin. Kani Joni be Nan Kaikwe, Titligin Sa Ankoya, this bed is the Eco Mountain Graham. The Biage in there, I'll link Ariko, Dana Rint Irul. Da Nakaya, you had to stay on there, I'll link with Safford. You'll be leaders, Ibudana Rinti, the community, the family. The church is not on the one, but not in the logic or Kani Joni be and Jishbon as a skins. Yahobeneje, Council Ankoyako. Non David and I didn't look Biles Yuko, Fort Thomas, no students that that, no sugar should all that. Queen is Safer and the students that link. Thank you. You can be seated. Shajaneshna Ayo, Dio Shajaneshna Ayo, Dio Shajaneshna Ayana, Dio Shajaneshna Ayo, Dio Shajaneshna Ayo, Dio Shajaneshna Ayana. Thank you.
I definitely want to thank you for being here. This was this was the best council meeting we've had, and I've been here many, many years. We're neighbors, and let's get to know each other better. Thank you again. Okay, now at this time, um, we have a proclamation I'd like to read. Recognizing November as National Native Americans through standing, appreciating, and respect San Carlos Apache tribe, whose ancestral significant contributions to our economy and their proud historic service as members of the United States Armed Forces. And whereas it is essential to reflect on the history, struggles, and achievements of the Native Americans, fostering a deeper understanding of their impact on our society, and whereas this month serves as an opportunity for all residents to engage in educational activities, culture celebrations, and community events that promote the recognition of the Native American history, culture, and heritage. Now, therefore, I, Richard Ortega, Mayor of the City of Safford, along with the entire City of Safford Council, do hereby proclaim November as National Native American Heritage Month in the City of Safford. I encourage all citizens to celebrate and honor the contributions of Native Americans, especially the San Carlos Apache tribe, and promote inclusive and understanding within our community. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Safford to be affixed this 12th day of November 2024. And if you would, please come on up here. We have a plaque for you. What G and everybody, come on up. Councilman.
Need some card. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. Thank you for that very honorable thing that you all did. Really means a lot to me. I did update the council that was coming here, and they were very appreciative. They said thank you as a whole. I just really quickly just want to say a few words. One, now that the election is over, we can all breathe a sigh of relief and move forward. But in moving forward, I ask that we move forward together. And one of the ideas that I want to put in your minds and to think about is that if our tribe, working with Safford and Graham County, can during the month of November maybe plan for next November have an Apache Day here in Safford, and we would be very proud to do that, and not just for the event itself, but a lot more for education, the education of each community, and also the fellowship. The fellowship. I know we all have our faith, and we all rely on our prayers. No different with us also, and we would really appreciate that. Several years ago, we had a study done where our tribe was recognized as might surprise some of you as #1 employer in Gila, Graham County. So we have our hospital, new hospital and clinic, new clinics being built in Bylis. But our hospital employment level healthcare is at a little bit over 800. And we're having a groundbreaking ceremony this Thursday for a new long-term care center to bring our elders home. 4-level care, 100-bed facility that's going to employ 200 more people. And I know at our healthcare facility, we have people that live here that work there and really appreciate their expertise, professionalism, and customer care that they bring to our people. And also, we have a new sawmill that's up and running. We're getting into the second phase of that, where there'll be finer cuts that we can be able to do business with Home Depot, Ace, and others. And also, recently, just about 2 weeks ago, the council approved our gaming board to go out and get financing. We're going to build a new casino right there by Pechago Casino. So we're expanding in a lot of different areas, and of course, we have rights to water. Right now, we lease water to Freeport-McMoRan for their operations in Morenci and Safford. So we've had that relationship since World War II, and it's still ongoing, and it benefits to both of us. And there's so much more we can do with each other, and working together in a positive manner. And a lot of that, I think, just goes back to us knowing each other better, understanding each other better, and move forward in a positive direction. And we have a lot to offer: economics, water, natural resources. I mean, there's so much to offer, and we want to do it with our neighbors. So that's why I'm here tonight on behalf of our council. So thank you very much.
On Thursday, when was that again?
What's that?
Thursday, this coming Thursday?
This coming Thursday, yes.
At what
10
time?
a.m. in Peridot, just this west of the hospital. There's an open area construction. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Have a safe trip home. Okay. To me, this is, like I mentioned, this is one of our better council meetings. Okay, then we'll go ahead and move on to item number 5. Any comments on agenda items? Then we'll move on to item number 6, non-agenda items. Okay. Then we'll close the regular meeting and reconvene into a public hearing. Public hearing as required by Arizona Revised Statute Section 42-17104. A public hearing will be held for the purpose of hearing comments from the public on the following item. Number 1, Gonzalez rezone. Is there anybody that have any? Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. These parcels are not addressed yet, so for your reference and in the map attached in your packet, they are on the northwest corner of Golf Course Road and 20th Avenue. This is a request for the Mayor and City Council to hold a public hearing for the proposed rezoning of Grand County Parcel 106-01307 and portions of parcels 106-01002N and 106-01002R from the C3 Light Commercial District to the MHD Manufactured Home Development District. The strategic goals involved are growth and development, pursuing infill opportunities. Background: the Planning and Community Development Department has a recent receipt of an application from Jesus Gonzalez. The parcels are currently undeveloped and a large portion of his property is already zoned MHD. The zone change will allow the applicant to have all of his property available for his recreational vehicle park. He will be building an RV park on his currently zoned MHD property. Another recreational vehicle park is located south of the property, and existing multifamily housing is located to the north. The properties to the west of the area are vacant. The properties across 20th Avenue are a mix of commercial and residential uses. The residents of the proposed RV park will have walkable access to the new city park and walking path. Next in your packet is the list of uses that are allowed in C3, and then the list of uses that are allowed in MHD. You'll note that travel trailer parks are allowed in that zone as long as they meet our development standards. General plan compatibility. The property is located in the Safford Neighborhoods Character Area in the City of Safford General Plan. And Goal 14, Policy 1 of the Safford Neighborhoods Character Area states, make the best use of available vacant parcels within the existing corporate boundaries to support infill and compact forms of development such as mixed use and a wide diversity of residential densities and housing types where appropriate with the Safford Neighborhood Character Area. And also notes that it can have mixed use and high density subdivisions, and that they need to be located along arterial roads. And they should include pedestrian and bicycle connectivity to parks, regional shared paths, and trail systems and open space. The next goal, 1, Policy 2 of the General Plan states, provide a quality housing options in a variety that support a diverse population ranging from lower density residential areas to higher density workforce housing in proximity to employment, which this development would be. Because of the location of this property along the arterial road of 20th Avenue, along with the current MHD zoning on most of Mr. Gonzalez's property, it is an acceptable location for an RV park. There is a current need for transient workforce housing as evidenced in the hotel feasibility study that was recently completed for Graham County. Hotel rooms and rental units are often filled with transient construction workers, and there is a lack of rental housing for students and travelers. Mr. Gonzalez held his neighborhood meeting on September 9th, 2024 at the City Annex. No neighbors attended the meeting. I have had no comments from neighbors. Planning and Zoning Commission held their public hearing and recommends approval for the following 3 reasons. The majority of Mr. Gonzalez's property is currently zoned MHD. Number 2, the area is appropriate for the development of an additional RV park. Number 3, the City of Safford is in need of diverse housing options of all types to meet the growing housing needs of our community. Your attachments are the Planning and Zoning written recommendation and your neighborhood meeting notes. Mr. Gonzalez is here in the audience, and with that, I will stand for questions.
Anybody have any questions? Then we'll, everybody have a chance to review the minutes of October 28, 2024?
I had a comment. when we were discussing to take over the secondary on the electrical system from the source to the residents, it states that I was against it for most part. I'm not against the new portion to be done now, because that's the way everybody else does it. I just had the question of grandfathering in certain parts of it, and we still have questions about that in front of us. But I just, the brand new ones we're gonna do now, yes, we should take them from the source to the home. I just wanted to make sure I was clear to all of you on that.
Anybody else?
Mayor, I make the motion, we approve the minutes from October 28th.
We have a motion, we need a second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve October 28, 2024 council meeting minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Okay, item number 2, appointment of 2 new members to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a request for the Mayor and Councilman Arbizo to each appoint 1 citizen to fill the 2 vacant positions on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. Strategic goals are quality of life, public information, and public outreach. Background, R24-033 was passed on September 23, 2024 by the Mayor and City Council, revising the City of Safford Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee rules of procedure and tasking, and increasing the committee to 7 members. As a result, the committee now has 2 vacancies. Analysis, Section 3 membership of the Rules of Procedure and Tasking document is included, and it shows that there shall be 7 voting members of the committee who shall reside within the City of Safford. Each council member will appoint 1 member to serve at will. Members may be discharged by a majority vote of the council for non-attendance, moving out of the City of Safford, or any reason deemed necessary by the council. New appointments shall be made to fill a vacancy created by the death, resignation, or discharge of a committee member. Staff recommends that the Mayor and Councilman Arbizo each appoint 1 new member to serve on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee and bring the current membership to 7. Your attachments are the resolution that was passed in September and the currently adopted rules of procedure. That I will stand for questions.
You just want us to give the name now?
Yeah.
Okay. Maria Couch,
Gilbert Perez.
Thank you.
does it? Thank you. Okay, then we'll move on to item number 12, ordinances. Number 1, ordinance 024-011. That's the Gonzalez rezone, first read. We'll need a motion and a second.
Mayor, do you want us to do a brief present before you move forward
Pardon?
with the vote? Do you want a brief present before we move forward with the vote?
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Staff is requesting a first reading of ordinance O24-011, an ordinance of the City of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, rezoning Graham County Assessors Parcel 106-101-307 and portions of parcels 106-01002N and 106-01002R from the C3 Light Commercial District to the MHD Manufactured Home Development District. Strategic goals are growth and development. The applicant has held the required neighborhood meeting, and both the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council have held public hearings on this matter. The Planning and Zoning Commission has recommended approval. The zone change will allow the applicant to have all his property available for his recreational vehicle park. He will be building an RV park on his currently MHD zoned property. Another recreational vehicle park is located to the south, and existing multifamily housing is located to the north. The properties on the west of the area are vacant. Properties across 20th Avenue are a mix of commercial and residential uses. The residents of the proposed RV park will have walkable access to the new city park and walking path and your attachment is the ordinance O24-011.
Move to approve the first reading of ordinance O24-011, the Gonzalez rezone.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 024-011. That's the Gonzalez rezone first reading. All in favor? Opposed? Carries. Okay, we'll close the regular meeting.
Mayor? I need
Oh,
to
you
do
have
the
to
read.
read, I'm sorry.
This completes the first reading for ordinance number 024-011, an ordinance of the mayor and city council of City of Safford, Graham County, Arizona, effectuating a map amendment rezoning Graham County assessors parcels number 106-01-307 and portion of parcels number 106-01-002N and 106-01-002R from City of Safford C3 Light Commercial District to MHD Manufactured Home Development District. Thank you.
Okay, then we'll close the regular meeting and reconvene into work session. The work session, number 1 is the annex policy.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a request for the Mayor and City Council to hold a work session to review a draft annexation policy for the City of Safford. The strategic goals are growth and development. Smart growth is important to keep the City of Safford a great place to live, work, and visit. The city manager has tasked staff with providing a framework for well-planned and manageable annexation. Staff has reviewed the applicable state statutes, the annexation manual provided by the League of Cities and Towns, and reviews policies from other municipalities in the state. This information has been used to create a draft annexation policy that has been reviewed by our attorney. If approved, this policy will be in effect for the update of the general plan and will create a clear path for the addition of property to the City of Safford. The next section is one of the steps that we will go through for annexation, and this is the ASRS statute that states, on or before the date the governing body adopts the ordinance annexing territory, the governing body shall have an approved plan, policy, or procedure to provide the annexed territory with appropriate levels of infrastructure and services to serve anticipated new development within 10 years after the date the annexation becomes final pursuant to subsection D of this section. The 2016 City of Safford General Plan began the work to create a plan for annexation and growth areas. With the update of the general plan in 2026 and this policy as a guide, the city will be prepared to move forward in a well-planned and sustainable manner. Staff requests that the City Council hold a work session and provide feedback for the draft annexation policy. Attached to your documents, you have the draft policy, the 2023 League Annexation Manual, and the applicable state statutes in ASRS Section 9-471. That I will stand for questions.
You, the majority of this, it appears that you got from the League of Cities and Towns.
Yes, sir.
Did you have to make any changes, or you expect any changes that will benefit us more, or that we need at this time, or what you see?
So to prepare this document, that is the way that we worked on it. We looked at other municipalities, the league manual, and state statute. And once again, we looked at things that were very important for the City of Safford to make sure that were listed and acknowledged by the City Council as priorities. For example, promotes public and private construction of timely and financially sound infrastructure expansion. So we went through all of that information that's attached in your packet and pulled out what we feel is very important to the City of Safford. And this is a great time to edit that, update it, change it, take any items out of those documents that you would like added.
That we would like that?
Yes, if there's something that's very important to you in that manual that you don't see in this document, now is a great time, because this will serve as a guideline moving forward when we either want to pursue annexation or property owners come to us with annexation proposals, to look through these checklists and see if this annexation meets our policy statements. So the work session is here so that you can have as much input as you'd like in the document.
Well, I would need more time to look it over more in depth. It is a good size. But we do need a tool to go forward to give you, because we are, even though we haven't got anything in mind at the time, we do need the tool in reserve.
Yes, sir.
That's where we're going with this right now.
Yes, sir. So this is, Vice Mayor and Mayor, this is direction from the city manager, as with all of our policies that we're updating, to make sure that we're in a good place when either people come to us and want their property annexed, or we seek annexation to grow our community.
And the changes that take place would possibly start with you, staff, come to us, or no changes can be made unless we know.
Correct.
Because there's quite a bit of reading yet and feeling on my part to be done to see what you got here.
Correct. If the mayor and council would like, we could bring it back at the next council meeting and give you some extra time to read the documents. They are quite lengthy.
So I'd kind of like to get an idea of hypothetical target, see what I would think about going forward, what tools I would use in this also to be able to talk to you about stuff.
Sure.
And I think that a lot of this is very rule-driven. State statutes guide a lot of it. And so the idea here is to have a policy with the council that allows us to have just an umbrella idea of moving forward. Now, we recently did an annexation on 191 when the Dollar General went in. All the procedures that were used to put that facility in the city will be the same procedures you would follow going forward. I think that annexation in general, the part about it that becomes something other than a rule-driven process is that you have to have an idea of who the developer is, what you're trying to develop, what the size of the area is. And again, that will be dependent on whatever the development is. A lot of the development that we would see obviously would go east or south. And so it's really a process of saying to anyone who's looking, either the developer would come in and buy land to be annexed into the city, or if there was a desire on council's part, if we came to the council and said we would like to see annexation go forward in some manner, then the idea would be to put together some type of I don't know, I wouldn't call it an advertisement, but a cost-benefit analysis for those that we would seek to annex. Because the first questions you're going to get is, does it cost me money? How does it impact my services? So you need something other than simply the process, and that's really what this is the process. And so really, I guess what we're doing tonight is adopting a formal policy of council to go forward with the process as it already exists. The specific developments would drive whatever the character of that annexation was, or the specific area. And of course, whoever was in that area, as it lays out in terms of 50% of the residents, 51% of the value, it's one of those things where it would depend on whether people wanted to be annexed or not at that point. So it'd be very project specific once you actually were going through that process.
I guess the question I have too is, if we have something already, what are we adding to it now?
Yes, Mayor and Vice Mayor. This is a clear guide that will be clearly displayed for anyone who is interested in annexation or for staff in the future, so that they can go through this checklist of numbers 1 through 6 and evaluate this property. Especially, Mr. Casella was speaking of number 5. Annexation shall only be considered after considering and evaluating the operational and fiscal impacts to the city, as well as the citizens in the proposed annexation areas. So really the goal of this is to make sure that the city's prepared to move forward in a well-planned manner, and there aren't just spot annexations or annexation pursued that we can't afford to provide services for. It's just a clear path for current staff and future staff, current councils, future councils, to, when they discuss annexation, say, okay, the council has decided that these 6 items are very important, and we need to go through each one of them anytime we consider annexation.
And having it updated is gonna help our 10-year plan in 2 years when we have to do it again?
Yes, Mayor and Vice Mayor, we'll be putting in the budget for this upcoming fiscal year, that 10-year update, and this will help us have a clear time frame for those growth areas. So the annexation area at the bottom of your draft states, proactive annexation areas will be shown in the general plan of the city of Safford as growth areas. City will proactively pursue annexation in these areas, and they will be identified in the general plan. The areas will be located contiguously to the city and provide a strategic benefit to the city, such as economic connectivity or growth planning. So it's a clearly stated guiding document, if approved by the council, so that staff moving forward can evaluate each individual annexation and bring that information with a checklist to the council for their approval or disapproval. So, for instance, if I was going to bring an annexation forward in the next few months, you would have this document to reference that is much more condensed than the annexation manual or the state statute, so that you could do a quick overview and say, yes, it's contiguous, yes, we can afford it, yes, it is more than one parcel.
And it's more public friendly too?
Yes, it's a one-page document instead of the several pages of information that we gleaned it from.
Well, just because
You're, go ahead.
just because I'm behind always, I don't want to hold up a tool for you, so that's just what I was asking. Because we can still change stuff on it.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Is what you're proposing, have you put it in here? Because there's quite a few pages all shoved together, so I wasn't sure what is City of Leaks, what you wrote, what.
So
Where
the
are we at?
annexation policy, if you will scroll down one page. So this one page is the draft policy. And the other attachments are the large documents that we reviewed to create this document. And it has been reviewed by our city attorney.
So it's this one page?
Yes, that
Okay.
one page is the, as Vice Mayor stated, the more public-friendly goals of annexation, the condensed version, if you will.
This is the condensed version?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay.
Because we still have to follow the state statute, which, as you can tell, is quite lengthy, and we would use the league guide, which was just updated in 2023.
And this policy will be reviewed every 10 years?
That's the general plan, Mr. Mayor, that is mandated by the state to be updated every 10 years. So this document can be used as a reference included in our general plan update that is coming up.
I don't know if we're looking for people to annex or if somebody's asking questions about it, but I think we're still in a position where, being that this is a work session, I think we need to have some more conversation about how do we get people to want to build in Safford. I think we're still behind the 8 ball on that. And so I don't know if that's a part of this conversation or if it's another conversation we need to have, but I think we're still having some issues on that end, and I don't know exactly what they are, but we need to figure it out, or nobody's, I mean, I know of a couple of parcels that are close to our city that the owners are like, no way, I will never get annexed. So we've got something to fix there, and I don't know what it is, but we need to discuss that.
Well, the idea of annexation is a difficult one at best, no matter where we are. We recently had a mayor-manager meeting where the manager from Thatcher had voiced similar concerns with kind of the way their community is shaped, and they were looking at a particular parcel, and that the owner had voiced similar reluctance to annex into the town of Thatcher. And I think that's always the case. And I think that's why that the state statutes are built the way they are. They're trying to make as many hurdles as possible so that you don't go out and annex areas that don't want to be annexed, which is why I brought up the other issue, which is if we're going to annex people into our community, there has to be a benefit, right? So if I annex somebody in from the county, well, then my water fees are 25% less than they otherwise would be, right? Out of the gate. And so you look at things like that. Our property tax level is lower, although the county charges property tax to everyone. So you would have to do some kind of a cost benefit analysis, because ultimately the only way you're going to be able to annex anybody into the city is if they vote to be annexed. And so there has to be a case that's made that convinces people to do so. So annexation is always a challenge, no matter where I've been. As far as development in the existing community, we kind of had a work session on that with the community. Other than capacity fees, nothing of real specifically came up.
Well, I guess the reason I'm asking is the last two annexations that I know of were both because somebody wanted a service that we provide, but we wouldn't give it to them unless they annex, which kind of sounds like hostage taking, but I understand that that's the way it's done, but I would really like for us to be in a position where people wanted to be part of our city. And I think we need to discuss, how do we get there? That's all I'm saying.
Is there anything in particular you had in mind on that subject?
Well, all of our contractors don't want to work in the city of Safford, so, that's what I keep hearing, and I don't know how you fix that, but if nobody wants to work in the city of Safford, it doesn't matter how big we grow the footprint, nobody's gonna build here. So,
Well, and I think there's, obviously that's kind of true in a sense. Now, we did have a public meeting to ask that very question. And again, the only feedback that I got was that capacity fees were too high. Most of the comments that were there, and it was well attended, had to do with inflation and had to do with multiple governments, not just the city of Safford, but all governments that have regulations that are required for people, particularly in terms of putting the infrastructure in place, right? So what we did was we went out and brought a CFD policy, which we adopted, which this would work in conjunction with to try to address that infrastructure issue. There also appears to be difficulty finding property that's priced in a manner that people would want to build on. Again, it's something we can't control. Most of the development, we have a development going in on 14th Avenue that we've been working on. Again, I think because of the nature of the cost of that land. So there were several issues raised, but really the feedback we got in that public meeting was that there was nothing specifically unique to Safford other than the idea that they raised was the capacity fees. And so again, we engaged with the public. We asked, there were developers there were builders there, and there was very little specific to the city of Safford that would be an impediment to someone building in the city.
well, I was asking that question of contractors, and I was getting an answer like, well, I can build the same house in Safford and an identical house in Thatcher. The one in Thatcher will appraise for more. I'm going to work in Thatcher. I then went to realtors and asked that question, and I said, how do you selling this? How are you pushing this? And they said, well, we're told to tell people that Thatcher doesn't have a property tax. Therefore, you want to live in Thatcher. Both of those things are valid, and we need to have something that counteracts that, something that fixes that, something that trumps that. I don't know. I just think we really got to discuss it, and I don't think we can just, we're not going to fix it tonight. I know that.
No, and again, we tried to reach out to the community to find out specifically what those issues were. Now, tax policy, that's something that council can address, right? If you wanted to have a different property tax rate, for example. But most of the things we talked about, there was nothing specifically, and that issue didn't come up either. So,
Well, I think we need to do some more digging, because there got to be answers out
I agree that if we have to look at these things, and hearing that, some of your comments, we should talk about them. We should, because we want to grow. I think we should schedule a work session and bring it out and everybody just free to talk. I don't know how everybody else feels.
there's no purpose to grow just for the sake of growing. But my main thing is we're pumping water to all these people, but we're not getting their waste back. I think that needs to be a serious consideration in which way we grow. I think we need to figure some way that, you want our water, you need to be part of our city. And we need to be getting your water back. But man, that's a lot of infrastructure.
Well, and that's two separate issues, right? So
Well-
one is to bring them into the city, and two is to put ourselves in a position to get effluent back, which we don't do now, right? That has been an ongoing discussion. There has been discussions about trying to do some kind of effluent system that would bring the effluent back to our plant, and I think that will be an ongoing discussion. I don't know if that will encourage anybody to annex into the city or if it will
Probably
make
not.
it easier for developers. So what we are doing is we're looking, and again, we have a committee that looks at these. So we've brought you code changes in terms of how do we, expand along lot lines? Maybe that's where we put our roadways. We've talked about east-west corridors and trying to encourage building out the east-west corridors. We've talked about blight and trying to clean up the existing properties. We're putting in parks to make the community more attractive. And again, as you will see on the 18th, there is a lot of things in terms of the tax profiles, which vary somewhat. You can look at the taxing profiles, but no one has ever really raised the issue of taxes, at least not with us, and they certainly didn't raise it in that meeting. That's not to say that it's not an issue. Is it a service issue? Does it have to do with community development and our ability to provide inspections in a way that's consistent? I don't know, but there's nothing right now. We've tried to reach out to the community purposefully because we've talked about this several times, and we have yet to really get a unique issue that says, here's why you don't want to build in Safford versus another community. And some of those things are things that we can't control, right? Talk about school districts or things like that. That's not something that we can control ourselves.
I think, we should kind of take a look and see why are the realtors automatically putting us behind the 8 ball? That's kind of what you mentioned, right?
That's kind of the way it came back to me.
I think that's something that should be it. We should talk.
And they were at that meeting.
And some of them weren't. The ones I was talking to came to me to complain that they didn't get invited.
That I did hear, and we did look into that. My understanding was anybody with a business license, I think, got an invite, correct?
Yes, sir.
So I did talk to a few people also who said they didn't get an invite, but there was only 2 that I talked to. I don't know if there are more. We are trying to reach out on this issue. I mean, we're all on the same page, right? I would like to see development in the city of Safford as well, and we're doing everything we can, right? We got CFDs, we're bringing annexation policies, we're building more amenities, we're trying to beautify the community, we're trying to do all those things that would encourage people to build in Safford. I'm not getting anything specific from anyone that I can adjust. Tax policy is something we can look at. We're going into the budget process. If we want to look at tax rates, we can do that.
No, I'm not trying to be confrontational. I just want to make sure it's all been discussed and looked at, and we've done all we can do.
I've done community meetings. I literally had a meeting with a local realtor and someone who does development. And very little of substance comes out of those meetings. There's really nothing actionable. I mean, if there was, why wouldn't we? There's a way for us to take action that would encourage development in Safford. And again, if it wasn't a huge impact to us, which I don't know why it would be, why wouldn't we do it? If someone can come up to me and give me that magic bullet, I'd be happy to put it in the chamber. I'm not hearing it.
What are the rest? Anybody else have any comments?
There's somewhat of a realtors meeting tomorrow morning at 7:00, breakfast at the county. And I'm gonna go hear what they got to say there, but I wait to hear what they got to say. That's at 7 in the morning, I believe.
So again, I'm all ears. If somebody could give me something specific that we could act on, then we're here.
I just think that's as close as we're going to get to an agendized discussion of that.
But again, it can be part of the ongoing budget process discussion. It could be a work session. I just don't know what the subject matter is going to be. Uh, But, but again, I think the annexation policy is just another way to help clarify what that process looks like. It's predominantly driven by state statutes. You don't have a lot of latitude. There's things that have to be done by law, and that's what we do. There's things you can't do by law, and we don't do those, the spot annexation kind of thing anymore. So really, if you want people to annex in, if you're looking to annex properties in, then you got to look mostly at a balance sheet. Most people will look at the cost. Some will look at level of service. And then others, maybe who are larger developers of sorts, maybe be looking at it from the point of view as they see demand for housing in this area, and they're big enough to buy a piece of land, annex into the city, and go through the CFD policy, and maybe that encourages them. So again, we're trying to put in as many tools in the kit as we can, but there's nothing specific for me to act on at this point.
I think the cost of the land is
I think it's a big
a
problem.
big issue.
Yes.
Anybody else have any comments?
No, well, an annexation policy is needed.
So tonight, we're here to talk about an annexation policy, which is essentially almost, if you will, like a strategic plan, if you will, on annexation. This is a summary of is the purpose for which we want to do an annexation within these bullet points, which are really designed as a summary from a much larger process that if you did annexation, is quite involved. I mean, even doing the Dollar General was a pretty complex process in getting that done. This is really saying conceptually, in terms of what you value, what your vision is, do these bullet points capture why you would pursue an annexation? The process is still going to be there regardless.
I'm good.
It's a really good start, and I think it probably fits 99% of the bill. It's just like all the other policies we've changed here. As soon as we actually try to use it, then we'll find the flaws in it. But if we got to fix it now, let's fix it.
So is this something we can bring back as an action item? Because tonight is the work session. If there's feedback for it, tonight's the time to make those edits. Not that you can't do it later, but the purpose of having it here tonight was to have that discussion. Or could we bring it back as a policy? I don't know that Ms. Embeck has any more direction as to where this should go that it already isn't. And I guess if there's somewhere we'd like to go, is there any adds to this that you would like to make or subtraction?
When you say bring it back, is that probably in a month, month and a half?
No, we'd probably bring it back in December, because if we brought it back, it would be for action.
That'll give me time to get a look over it.
And even then, I mean, if we bring an item for action, you can still make changes.
Still make amendments.
Yeah.
Everybody,
So we're going to bring it back for action and then see where we go from there. If there are new ideas, even if council wants to let staff know ahead of time, we can be prepared with any amendments you want to make. If not, we can do it on the fly. And of course, we want to have it in the public meeting anyway at some point so everybody sees it. But if you have feedback, if ideas come, please send them our way. If not, we'll bring it as it's currently configured. And then even if we get ideas, we can bring those ideas back, to be added or subtracted in the action item that we bring.
Thank you.
and we'll go ahead and move on to item number 2. The review of application process by the city council for council-related appointments.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a request to hold a work session to discuss and provide direction regarding the application process for all appointments, current and future, and relating to the conduct of the city business. Recently, council has appointed a member to their own council body and has also been requested to make appointments to the Planning and Zoning Commission. City Council has requested that staff provide council with an opportunity to discuss and standardize that process. The analysis for this is using the above examples as the basis for discussion. Council should develop a process that would work not only in this instant, but in similar instances that would require an application process. The discussion will only apply to those instances where an application process is utilized, but not apply to those instances where council makes direct appointments. With that, I stand for any questions.
Know that we have questions, but maybe suggestions.
Yes, definitely.
Um, because I think everyone was kind of uncomfortable with the whole, even appointing me, maybe just changing that process so that we have time to talk together as a council, like maybe an e-session so that we can discuss, questions or whatever we have and then come out and vote on it, make a nomination and then vote. So that way we have more time. I think the last appointment that we just did, I felt bad saying no, and I wasn't saying no to the person, I was saying no to the process because I wasn't aware that we were allowed to call the person. I didn't know the whole process, so I think we need some more clarification around that of, are we allowed to call? Should we be calling? If I call one, do I have to call all? Maybe setting some more clarification on this so that we have more guidance on this.
Well, I think you're highlighting a couple of issues. One, the application, and two, the process, right? So we just recently made the changes to the process in terms of the appointments for the P and Z, because before the mayor pretty much reviewed the applications, brought them, and then would make a recommendation and the council would vote. So we broadened that out so that we could get applications, give them to the entire council, and then come back and get feedback. And that seemed to work, but obviously there's some other questions. And I think they're legitimate. A couple things were the,
No.
there was, the applications themselves should be designed in a way that gives you enough information to at least make a decision, or at least get you a long way down the road. I think some of the way that they're filled out isn't necessarily comprehensive. Let's put it that way. Calling them, I think individually is appropriate if you want to call them and talk to them. I would hope that if we added a layer in that said, we would like to have an opportunity to meet with those who applied. So if somebody applies to me for a job, well, we usually have an interview process.
Right.
If you would like to add an interview process to the process, get the applications, and then the first night, what we would do is we would have an executive session and we would do interviews. And that's perfectly appropriate. And we could add that into the process. And that probably would solve a lot of the issues. One, because you would be talking directly to the person, right? So you would be able to understand where they're coming from. Plus, you'd get to see them in action and see how they carried themselves, how it's better in person. So I would think that this idea of adding a layer that said, hey, if we have applications, then let's assume that we're going to do an executive session, interview the candidates, and then you can either come back out that night and have an action item to vote, or you can wait till the next meeting, and that gives you a chance to kind of digest what you've heard and then vote. So
That'd be more fair because then we're not just having one candidate here, whereas we didn't get to hear from the other ones. So I kind of felt it wasn't really
absolutely. And I think we ran into that as well when we did our donations process.
right.
And so in that process, I think we would add another opportunity for people to speak on their own behalf for everyone. That way, if you
Right.
come, you come. If you don't, but you've been invited. As far as the application process here, I think just adding that ability to have that extra layer and do the interviews, assume that if we get applicants, that there's going to be interviews, we'll make that part of the process. And in fact, we can do it, we can add it to the code if we need to, and make a code amendment so that it's clear, not just for this council, but for any council going forward.
I would
Also,
vote.
Mayor, Councilwoman Bratner, just to make it clear, when there's a process of how last time they did the tallying of the votes when you were appointed,
Mhm.
because you guys individually rated each applicant, by the open meeting law, we do have to show that either here at live during the meeting, or at least I have to include it in my minutes. I know in the previous years, I believe it was discussed in executive session. You can't make a decision in executive session. You can kind of get direction and then come out and someone can make the motion. But Bill advised that, you just kind of got to be careful with that because if one of the applicants questioned, well, why, what brought you to that decision to select that person and whatnot. So that's why we went with the tally version for the last appointment. But again, that it's not private voting on those instances. So in the future, if we ever run into that again, the vote, how you guys rank, whatever process we use for that, we do have to at least list it in the minutes, if not live here during the meeting.
I just think the applicants got very uncomfortable with that, plus they got uncomfortable.
Right.
I mean, I didn't know any different, but I know it hurt some feelings, and it made it uncomfortable.
And I completely understand with you being on the council, it's uncomfortable to be up there and list your vote live. But any of these other appointments or selections for other committees, definitely do an interview process. If we do decide that, I do ask that when I send out an email, try to reply as soon as possible, just so I know to notify the candidates or the applicants in a timely fashion, because a lot of times I don't hear back from certain council members or any council members at that, and so I don't have the time to actually notify the applicants, hey, if they're gonna do interviews, or if sometimes it gets pushed back. So definitely if there's a quicker response from everyone, that helps me on my end, and Jessica's end here to contact the applicants, let them know so they can plan accordingly to come to the meetings if you're gonna do like a interview process.
Felt like we were rating people up in public, and that was real uncomfortable. So like if we have one position and we have 9 people apply and we only want to interview 4, how do we do that? It's been done. I've seen it here. So you don't have any restrictions on that, do you?
Mayor and Vice Mayor Lopez, I'm aware of, we don't. Bill unfortunately isn't able to join us tonight, that he could give us some more direction on that. I do know I would have to go to executive session to discuss that option, that direction. But I haven't been part of that process in the past. This was my first time dealing with the appointing of a vacancy on the council, and that was recommended. That way it was fair. Everybody was voting, and it would come out with whoever had in this case, the lowest, right? It's what,
Yes,
yeah, the lowest
lowest,
ranking.
yeah.
But I completely understand it is kind of puts you on the spot, and you're voting on people you'll see at breakfast on Sunday, or and so I understand where it is uncomfortable, but we just have to make sure we find that even balance with still complying with open meeting law.
So if we have, I said 9, but if we have 10 and I only want to interview 5, how do I get that to you where 5 of them are notified you're not going to get a interview?
To decide that as a group in an executive session. So you could take the stack of applicants, you can meet in executive session, review the applicants in the first place and say, these are the ones that we agree on, and you would have to, basically, you couldn't take action in that, but you could probably come out and say, the council has decided to interview the following applicants for the position on the P and Z. That way, you're not voting in executive session, you're coming out, you're making a public decision as a group, and you can vote on it at that point where you're actually going to take action. And I guess you could even do it individually, but you probably could just do it as a group. You can't vote. It doesn't mean you can't have some kind of a consensus. You just can't make a formal vote in executive session.
As long as you come out with direction.
Yeah.
Came out with direction. You didn't vote, but you came out with the direction of the council decided to do X, Y, and Z.
So we can come out and say, we have given the clerk direction to send interviews requests to 5 people, and that's it.
Yes. And then you would read those people, make a motion, vote, and then you would bring them back for another executive session to do the interviews, and then you would make your selection in an open meeting.
And then the call thing, I didn't know we could call them either. I thought if you call one, you have to call all of them, because it's kind of like if you have to ask them all the same questions and stuff like that. So you don't have to call all of them.
Mayor, Vice Mayor Lopez, it's completely up to you who you would want to call.
Okay.
My suggestion would be to make it fair and call all applicants. My further suggestion would be to bring them in for interview. Especially when these last few appointments that we've had, our selections, it hasn't been a huge number of applicants, so it wouldn't hurt us to just call an executive session, let them know and come in and do an interview. That way everyone is on the same page, everyone hears the same answers, everyone gets asked the same answers. That would be my suggestion to hold interviews.
Because I went through an interview process, and when they came out, nominations were made, they voted, and that was that, and it was way better. But it's just our wording to you. I know we have to do it in public, and we can, and we've done that. But now each appointment don't seem to be the same though. Using the same process for each thing don't always seem to fit.
Are there any examples of that?
That's what I'm trying to get. Which one?
I mean, because the appointment for the Parks and Rec Committee is a direct appointment by council. We've gone back to that. But there was a time where we went from 5 to 7 or 7 to 5, and so we did an application process. But in that process, I don't think that was one of the ones that you were uncomfortable with, and I think you were as well because you weren't as familiar or didn't feel that was appropriate. So what we're trying to do is say you can have an application process, we can put it in the code, and we can make it optional. I mean, but the problem is you want to be as consistent as you can. So if you get applications for any of positions, and we have the P and Z and Parks and Rec at this point, I don't know what it would be. Maybe you would have another committee down the road, but you could always have an application process and go through the executive session, select those you want to interview, go through the executive session, interview those individuals and make a choice. Unless you were doing a direct appointment, you probably would want to be as consistent as possible with that process.
Well, the P and Z, I thought, I was thinking, I done forgot because it changed too. I thought the P and Z made a recommendation to the mayor, and the mayor brought it to us.
That was the old ordinance. Now, former Mayor Couts was uncomfortable with that process, which is why we went to the application process and changed the code.
Well, I think P and Z would kind of like to know who they might be working with. Would they object to interviewing their own people?
That I don't know. I mean, it's the council that appoints members to the P and Z. So again, I think there's a reason for that the P and Z doesn't appoint their own members. It comes to you to go to be on that board, right? So you are the vetting body for those folks, right? So
Well, okay, so again, if we have 10, can they make 5 recommendations? We take it from there.
we would have to change the process in an ordinance, and that would be something I would check with Bill on to make sure there's no kind of conflict of interest in that where they're recommending people for themselves, right? So the idea is that the council's vetting, knowing who's going to be on there to put on that board that's advisory back to you.
I
I-
think it just come to the council myself.
And we can look, I can ask if that's possible. I don't know off the top of my head if that would create an issue, but
The same method for each thing. That's less confusing, but does it work?
it should work in an appointment process, if it's an application process.
Yeah, well, if I got 10, we'll whittle it down. We'll make a recommendation, but not knowing who in the heck you're talking about, that's not fair to people. I didn't know anybody. I went with what the mayor suggested on the last one, trusting in him. And,
But that's what the process is for. You get to know them as best you can.
well, I didn't know I could call him.
Yeah, you can call them. But I would think, again, in the process, in order to keep the playing field as even as possible, we could have a set of questions that we could even review with council for P and Z appointments. And then you would already know what you're going to ask them, and then everybody asks them the same thing, and you create an even playing field. Now, whether or not you know somebody or not, chances are pretty good you probably will in a small community. But if you don't, well, you're going to have a different perspective regardless of the process, right? Because some people may have a more personal relationship and be more comfortable with that.
I like the interview where they come in and they all get to talk to us,
Yeah,
because just reading a piece of paper, you don't know what a person's like.
I
They
agree.
may write something, but if they're in front of you and we're asking, you set those questions and we can ask them like we did with my appointment, I think that gives you a better idea of what they really understand, and we're not getting just black and white. We get the personality and
Yeah.
the knowledge behind
And
it.
some of them, when they fill the application out, it's not the best.
I could barely
So,
read the writing.
yeah. So again, I think if you talk to someone, and again, I know when I do hiring, a lot of it's on, do they have energy, right? Are they interested? Do they have a passion for it? The rest can be learned. So,
And if we whittle it down, put it out, who is being considered, with enough time, usually the public contacts us and puts lobbies for a certain people and gives us an idea of also what they think of what person. Yeah, I like that person. Well, you better not. You get it all.
right. And again, the idea is to try to have a process that's based on the merits, right? Because I'm sure, depending on I know I'm pretty much everybody loves me, but there could be that rare individual out there who might not
Say
be
that
fond
again.
of me, and
Say that
then
again.
that assessment might be unique.
Turn me down,
But
Mike.
yeah,
Turn me down.
so, but yeah, that's kind of why we have the process.
Do we
So-
take a vote?
So, so, so where are we at? Trying to possibly whittle it down, have a chance to interview people.
Well, but that doesn't work for the grant process, and this is the same problem. I mean,
Or
we
which
need to hear from everybody. I mean,
It will work. In the grant process, what we're gonna do is, the next time we do the donations, what we're gonna do is we're gonna have a night where they all get to make a presentation of some length. So we'll put that out there and make that opportunity available to everyone who applies. So that way, if you choose to show up, you have an opportunity. If you choose not to, that's on you. We'll try to keep that window small. But I know I talked to some people, and very sincerely, and they said, it wasn't really presented in a way that really gave a full impression of what we were trying to do. And there was one in particular where I met with someone, and it was a great meeting. And when I got done talking to that individual, I thought this is something that we could support. And I think if council knew the full breadth of what they were doing, you may have acted differently. So in the case of the donations, we'll be giving people an opportunity to speak, all of them.
on that and on the planning and zoning appointments, I'm with Arnold on, get somebody who knows what they're doing and have them go through it all and make a recommendation. And then for us to take it from the recommendation and go from there.
Who would that be?
Well, every grant process in this county has a group of readers who go through and score those grants. Why don't we? Why didn't we? We're not qualified for that.
Right, but you have the authority to appoint to the board. That's why you're in the loop.
But we've never even seen a grant before this last one. I mean,
I'm not talking about the grants. I
I
think we're
know.
mixing apples and oranges. I mean, but in terms of the P and Z,
okay,
does it sound reasonable to have an application process where you interview the applicants and then make a choice?
yeah.
So for that, we can, go ahead.
But it also makes sense to hear from planning and zoning themselves,
Right.
who they think they could work with best.
Well, let me talk with Bill, because I don't know if that creates any kind of internal conflicts, but I can find out.
That is their job, is to recommend to the council on the items that go to them.
Yes.
So if that can't go to them, then that's fine, but.
Yeah.
You
Maybe
said-
have them sit in on the interview with us and give their feedback.
Yeah, okay. I just want to check on that with you, just to make sure. I don't want to speak out of turn, but just to make sure, because right now the ordinance says that council appoints, so that's kind of where we're at. If we want to go in a different direction, the ordinance should reflect that. Let's just find out if
Well,
it can.
the council makes decisions on rezonings too, but that's not where it starts.
I kind of hear what you're saying, that the members themselves should recommend a person to us, right?
Or three, or, I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
just, I think they
I-
should whittle it down.
And maybe we make that part of the process. We can put that right in the code that says, the P and Z will make recommendations to fill vacancies on their board. Those recommendations will be brought to city council for their review. I just got to make sure that we can do that, but I don't know that that would be difficult.
Maybe we can make it hard enough that only one person applies.
We're getting there.
As of right now, we have 0 for the PNC, just throwing that out there.
But I think that's a reasonable request. I just want to make sure we can do that. Would that be okay based on your, because I know,
Yeah, because I don't want it to be like, for me, I go and I tell Avila, hey, guess what, Avila? You're gonna take, this person over here and they're gonna work with you now. And he's like, hey, whoa, wait, they don't have any. So I think their idea is great, that if we're gonna have planning and zoning, send them to us. At least they know, hey, this person has some background in this. They kind of know what they're talking about.
sure, no, I
Because
think
if
it
you
sounds
throw
good.
me on planning and zoning, I'm gonna throw a huge wrench in their whole process because I know nothing.
All right.
So people want to do something, but they don't understand it. So having that background behind would really help move them along and help keep their stuff running good. So I think that's
So,
great.
if that is possible, if, if the P and Z themselves can be the first step in the vetting process, if we brought back as an action item, something that said, step one, applicants will be provided to the Planning and Zoning Committee for their recommendation to council. Step two, council will take those applications and then do interviews. And then step three, council will make the appointment. Can we bring back an action item with those steps?
Now, you're gonna visit with planning and zoning about this
Well,
discussion.
we'll have to visit with them and with the attorneys
Well,
to
and
make
we don't
sure.
want to throw them in the same boat, that they don't get the process of talking to them. We don't want them to just pull it off paper either.
Do you want them to do interviews too?
Well, I don't know. I think we gotta talk that over
Gotta
with
talk to 'em.
them. I mean, how are they gonna make a better decision than we did if they're looking at a piece of paper from somebody they don't know?
Okay.
And then with the grants, you talked about a board. Could we set up a board who scores the grants before they come to us so that they're qualified and know what they're doing, and then we look at what their recommendations are?
Good.
Probably have 4 or 5 people in here that have done it, just sitting in our audience, that know more about it than we do.
Yeah, I mean, you could have an external board make recommendations to you.
That might help to clear out maybe the ones that weren't qualified or we had issue with or back and forth.
Well, on the donations, to me that, and again, this is my past experience, it's a direct desire and a reflection of council value. If an applicant doesn't make the cut in terms of the basic criteria, they're not a 501 or some type of nonprofit, or in that case, to me, I would rather they come directly to you, but it doesn't have to be that way. You can, dare I say, take applications for a board that would then vet your donations. And it certainly is possible if you wanted to go down that road.
Put it in the hands of our likable manager.
Our loved manager.
Exactly. Well, please.
We vote on that
Um,
again?
We do need to advertise, I know you, enough to where, and they're given enough time. It seemed like the last ones didn't have, I don't know, it wasn't, some people didn't know about it. It seemed like.
The
That's always-
donations?
No, the position on planning and zoning.
Well, we do try to put it out there. We do advertise.
I do know you do, and only so many can look at it.
Yeah.
No.
And we always get that. You know, I joke because when I was in Sierra Vista, we actually had a consultant, which I know everybody loves too, and they brought in and they talked to us about these non-traditional ways of engaging with the public, which is why I recommended a citizens advisory committee. And we would get the same kind of feedback. We would have a full page ad in the newspaper once a month about all the meetings for that month. And inevitably, we had complaints about people not knowing when the meetings were, except we had a gentleman who was homeless who made all the meetings. And I thought, well, if he can do it, we can all do it, right? Because there's always going to be somebody who doesn't get it. Now, we can try different, you had recommended at one point, maybe not everybody uses social media. So if there's a way, maybe we even have something, an announcement on the radio that says, hey, just FYI, city, is currently looking to fill 1-2 vacancies on the Planning and Zoning Committee. If you have questions, please contact the assistant city manager or some email or phone number they can call, and maybe we can do something that way where we try to get into the non-social media stuff. Because we're still working on, and Eric's been working very diligently on trying to spread that out as much as possible and get it out there as best we can. But I think you're always going to find people like, I didn't know about it.
Gonna say that.
Yeah, so.
But again, on the donations, so we can't, as a council, like, say, executive session, whittle them down and talk it over, and then have a day where we let them know what we decided? Take action then?
I think you could whittle them down. You can't vote, but I think you can reach a consensus about those that you might want to leave on the list. And then I would leave the specific conversations and actions to be in a public meeting. Again, you can't vote in an executive session. Doesn't mean you can't kind of build a consensus. Just like if I have a work session in public, I kind of ask, is everybody okay with this? You're not voting. You kind of watch the heads nod, and as long as I got enough of them, I bring something back. And I think you can take a similar approach in executive session. You can't formally vote on anything, but I think if you guys reach a consensus on those you want to look at, and I think next year, as far as that goes, and I don't want to get too far off topic from the P and Z, but we can review the donation process again too as part of the budget process and really kind of nail that down, because it's really not on our agenda tonight. But we can bring something back to you, and I'm hearing you, and that could be appointing an external committee if you wanted to do that and have them be reviewed by them. But why don't we bring that one back for another night where we can really flush it out? So P and Z, right now, the recommendation is we'd like them to be the first step in the process. We'd like to have them get the applications, have an opportunity to interview. They make a selection on who makes the cut and goes to the next level. It then comes to you. You take those applications, you take the recommendations, you do interviews, and then you vote. Okay.
Okay, then we'll close the work session and reconvene into the regular session. Item number 16 is a report on operational items.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. With me tonight is Cherish Lazarus. We're going to give you a short presentation on our first annual Spooky Fest. So, missing tonight is Mariah Selby, who really worked with Cherish in getting this up and running. To give her a little plug, she's getting married on Friday, so that's why she's not with us tonight. So, just a little background. After we did our Teen Academy, Mayor had requested that we continue to develop programs and events that continue to engage our youth and our community. So these ladies came up with as you'll see, a program here to bring all the kindergarten kids in from all our local schools through the Safford School District. And we went ahead and included the TLC kids. And Solomon, we get most of the kids from Solomon, so we included them too. So I'm just going to preface this with these ladies did a great job with the planning, organizing, and setup of this. It was pretty successful. Got lots of good feedback, and the kids had a great time. So I'll let her give you the presentation, but again, they did a great job.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So like Chief Avila said, we did have the opportunity this year to do public outreach, and we really tried to speak to the kids this year. We decided that a Spooky Fest would be a good way to do so versus like a trunk or treat, kind of get the kindergartners involved. So we did take the opportunity to participate and promote our efforts, connecting in the community and striving to maintain a proactive relationship. As Chief Avila said, we did have 250 kindergartners from Safford Unified School District, TLC, and Solomon Schools that we invited to attend this event. And we did have a really good turnout. I believe almost all of them attended. We did take pictures with the children. We gave them goodie bags and treats, and we allowed them to ask questions with law enforcement. We also had vehicles there for them to tour, and they did a tour of the building as well. During photos with the officers, like I mentioned, they were giving custom-made goodie bags and cookies before entering into the maze. Once treats and photos were completed, kids were escorted through the maze. We did coordinate with teachers and staff to ensure kids were safe and excited for the walkthrough. Most of them were excited, but we did have a few that were a little scared, so we were aware of that. They did go through our training room. We did turn that into a maze, and they were greeted with candy. Groups of 4 or 5 with their teachers and their teachers' aides were going through the maze. You can see pictures there of how we decorated some of the spooky items we had in there. We did coordinate with Safford Unified School District to identify kids' comfort levels and arrange for modifications to the maze. Some kids preferred the lights on, and so we did do customized tours with those children so that they were also included. We were delighted with the amount of positive feedback we got from the teachers, the staff, the kids, also parents in the days coming up. We're very excited with the progress and the way we outreached with the community. So that feedback we're going to use for next year and hopefully incorporate more children or maybe other members of the community in that. And here is a short video, just a walkthrough of the maze so you can kind of see what we put together. Maybe. Let me try that one more time. Can they see that? And for the record, that music was a dramatized version. We did have Disney music for the kids so that they weren't incredibly scared. So yeah, we were really excited to participate and look forward to it next year.
That was very good. Thanks for doing
Thank
that.
you.
Real quick, just again, just to kind of highlight how much work they put into it. Those of you that have been in our training room, that's our training room that they reorganized and decorated. So they put a lot of work into it. Like I said, they did a really good job, and we'll continue to do our events and move forward with that as requested. So, and it's like I said, the feedback has been outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, then we'll move on to item number 17, financial reports. Number 1, P card.
Just for record, I have no questions. Although, thank you, Mr. Bingham, for your hard work. It really looks much better. I have to give you kudos publicly. You've done a great job on it. Thank you. I
Okay.
know, I know.
On our City of Safford utility, tipping fees, is that the dumping fees for that trailer? That's 200, is that 211 each time we dump it? This is the trailer somebody requests to clean up their stuff and fills up the trailer and then we haul it off for them?
Yes, Mayor and Vice Mayor, it depends on the weight of the trailer, and those are covered with our abatement fees that the council set aside for abatement within the city. So it is part of the service that we do cover the tipping fees, and it does vary on weight of the trailer. So it depends on what we're dumping.
Yeah, we're not gonna short ourselves out
Yes, and generally that's 1 month's bill. So that was everything during the month, not one load.
there. Okay, that helps out a lot.
Yes.
211. Okay. And I guess this clerk there's different survey monkeys. Do each one is the charges, are they monthly or are they per event of what we utilize it for? I think you have this one, B. Survey Monkey 327. Survey Monkey subscription. Is that for the year?
Yes, Vice Mayor, that's correct. It's for the year. I went ahead and purchased it because we are doing a lot more of surveys with the employees for the Employee Appreciation Committee. And I recently took the chair position of that committee, so we have to pay in order to see like the full results from all employees. If not, it just gives me like, I believe, the first 10 responses. So So I went ahead and paid for the full year subscription of the Survey Monkey.
Other departments seem to be purchasing Survey Monkey also.
Unfortunately, we can't share it. So, like HR has their own subscription that they can do their own surveys, and then I have to have mine. We can't share our subscription, unfortunately.
You haven't figured that out yet.
They haven't figured that out. So we should do a survey to Survey Monkey,
Yeah.
telling them that we should like that. Yeah.
I don't, it, it just don't seem like she can't conduct a survey on your Survey Monkey.
We like to keep it separate. Some of the stuff that she does is more confidential for employee reasons versus mine. It's shared with the entire Employee Appreciation Committee. So if she were to share her login or she did the survey on my behalf with the committee, then the entire committee would see all results on all surveys.
I'll go with what you're saying right now, but it sure seems like you guys could crack that nut somehow.
I'll submit a survey to Survey
Okay.
Monkey.
All right. Okay. And they're still coming from the mechanics part. Somebody's still going to O'Reilly's for auto parts more so than our own. And this is like month 9 now. This word should have been out by now. But it seems like going to O'Reilly's is the first, is going there instead of our own business.
I guess I'll take this one for my cousin.
Okay.
So my understanding with O'Reilly's is they deliver same day. The difference between Napa and AutoZone that are in our community is they don't provide that same day immediate delivery. When Clark calls to O'Reilly's, the part is there within 2 to 3 hours. So the service that O'Reilly's provides is much superior to what he gets at AutoZone and Napa. Paraphrasing, cousin being.
Yeah. So I don't know. It just seems like something could be done there too. It seems pretty handy to call O'Reilly's. I mean, I don't see running down there each time either, wasting time. It's kind of like people out in the field and running all the way to the warehouse for a little part when it should be on their vehicle.
Proper planning and some of that. But I think with O'Reilly's, it's like I said, if you have a vehicle up in the air and you figure out you need this part and they call down there and in 2 to 3 hours you get that part, you don't have to take the vehicle off the lift, move it to somewhere. He's able to get the problem resolved with them delivering the part within a reasonable time period.
Some of the parts seem like they should be in stock.
Oh, so we don't actually keep all, so with parts, it's hard to inventory because we have, our fleet is so diverse. So yeah, that, it would be nice if we could get to a standard, a Chevy, a Ford, a Dodge standard. We could start to talk about inventorying of parts, but given the diversity of our fleet right now, just you'd be carrying so many parts on the shelf with the anticipation of what's breaking. We don't know what happens to our vehicles. Sometimes they're routine maintenance. Sometimes it's something out of the blue. So given the terrain that we go over and the various obstacles we encounter, our vehicles see a lot different than what you see on a road vehicle traveling to and from a city, right?
Bottom line is service counts for a lot. If you get that from O'Reilly's, that's a big plus.
And I think Cousin Bingham, we've encouraged him to talk with Napa and AutoZone and ask for the same service, but I don't think we've been successful. And it's, again, staffing levels at those different facilities are different, right? Their motivation is just the general public that comes in and wants service. That's what O'Reilly or AutoZone really wants, right?
I think they saw
How much we spend with them,
Yeah,
they would forgive us, right?
There'd be a lot of motivation there.
So yeah, we can continue to have that conversation, but again, that service level is important to our mechanic right now when there's only 3 in the shop.
Thank you, sir. B, can't you use Jamie's Survey Monkey?
Again, Vice Mayor, the Survey Monkey I purchased is strictly for the Employee Appreciation Committee. If she would like to give me her login, then I can start doing surveys through there, but it ends up doing like a combination of surveys she does, surveys Danielle does with the Employee Appreciation Committee. So that's why each person has their own subscription to it.
Hers might work because it costs more than yours. Okay.
I do have one question. I'm sorry. I am seeing on the spot awards, and they're all over the page. Is there a specific amount we're doing for each one? Is it we're just pre-buying? I did see that, and I forgot about that question.
So as far as the on the spot award program, there's tiers. So there's $100, $75, $50, and $25, I believe. And so the Employee Appreciation Committee votes on, depending on what the employee is getting recognized for, what the amount of cash prize they're going to get.
Okay. I just seen charges all over the place for that.
I think what's important with on the spot, you have to understand that you actually, they tell you what your award level is, and then you tell them what you want. We don't have things in stock already pre-purchased for the employee that they get this. They say, okay, you get $25, and they HR reaches out to you. You have $25. What would you like to buy? And they could buy something for $19. They could buy something for $25 exactly. So
Okay, that
yeah,
makes sense.
that's why.
I think you asked this last time about bee removal in some other places. I remember I used to think that Chrysler did bee removal at some of our pump houses around the area, but some of these locations don't seem like that. And then you could do some preventive bee stuff ahead of the season. Cause this is like $50 a whack, and sometimes we got like 8 or 9 of them. So get rid of the bees before they get crazy. I don't know if they're opening up meters or what. But
Yeah, I don't know. Our utility manager is not here tonight, so we can follow up with that question for you next time.
yeah, because they're Thatcher, and they're not always where there's pump houses.
So our engineer is saying that they're typically meter boxes that we discover that we find bees, we stop work immediately and abate that, and then it's a case-by-case basis. If there was a routine way of going around the city and abating, that hasn't been figured out at this level yet, so.
Well, the pump houses, there's some stuff that stinks pretty bad that can be put in there, and that keeps them away. So that's just a suggestion.
We'll take that recommendation.
Okay.
And we'll move on. Revenue over 5,000. Anything there?
My only suggestion on that is could we get something where it shows what department maybe that is coming in for? Because when I was looking over those, I couldn't tell what was where was who.
We possibly could. I mean, some revenues are just general revenues to the general fund. So we don't allow departments to receive their own revenues, especially in the general fund.
Okay.
You're all part of a greater good. Our budget is how we allocate what they spend. We don't let them factor in revenues into their overall yearly budget. They can't say their budget got bigger because they brought in these revenues. The boards or the council sets that budget for them, and they need to live within that. So
I'm
giving them
sorry.
control of their revenues gets a little scary.
I'm sorry, I meant the expense.
Oh, expenditures? Yeah, we can give you a department there.
I just didn't know, yeah, because I can see it's being spent. I just didn't know which department.
Yeah, we can give you more there.
Then expenses over 5,000.
I'm good, Mayor.
Okay. Then we'll move on to item number 18, announcement of current events.
I have something from the Downtown Association members there reminding us about Mary Main Street. For all of us to be there if we can.
Can
Mary
we-
Main. Oh, go ahead.
No, go.
Does Mary Main Street come after we light the tree?
That is the tree lighting ceremony.
That is the tree lighting and the whole thing. Okay.
Can we just take this moment to give Cameron a good kudos because Saturday was freaking amazing. For all of us who showed up out there, I don't think I've seen that many people for a while. And it was everybody you walked by was, this is so cool. This is so amazing. This is so great. I've seen so many posts of the airplanes and how much fun they have. Thank you for doing that. And I hope next year's even bigger. I can't wait. I'm already excited for next year. So
And the pizza was great.
I'll add to what Dusty mentioned. My wife and the people I was with, 4 of my great grandsons. We went to ride on the helicopters, and there was a gentleman there from Honduras we were talking to. He was he might have talked to you. Anyway, he was from Honduras. He was the mechanic there, and he was totally impressed with our airport and what the first year putting this on. And he lived in Phoenix, or that's where he came from, Phoenix. And they saw the advertisement and they came down solely for this purpose. I mean, it was fantastic. The rides on the chopper. I'm a Vietnam veteran. I rode in those choppers, but I won't say how much younger. I didn't hang. We wouldn't hang on. The doors weren't on, and it didn't scare me. I tell you what, I had white knuckles, but it was great. My great grandsons, they grin from ear to ear all the time. So good job. And then I'd like to just make another comment on the Veterans Day. Everything was just fantastic. You did a beautiful job up there at the mic. The way you talked to everybody. Me as a Vietnam veteran, I felt good. And you know what? For the first time, a few people said thank you. And if they did that to more, great. I was very impressed. You did a good job. I was proud to be there this weekend for both events. Good job. We just begun. So let's keep going.
Mayor, I have one more thing for Cameron or for the manager or the assistant city manager. Is there any way we could do like a raffle for a helicopter, Huey ride or something like that next year, or bring in more funds or
That would be
something?
cool.
Take your credit card. That's what happened to me. I didn't know it cost so much. And with all
I
the
don't know.
I went and
grandkids,
found out and I was all like, oh my gosh,
Had a
5
little-
people. I got to pay for
Have a
5
good
people.
description.
I used to
so.
have cash in my pocket, and when he said how much, ooh,
Yeah. So, Mayor Ortega, Councilmember Andazola, the city manager and I already discussed that. So we may be looking at something like that in the future to do either airplane or helicopter rides as part of a raffle to help draw folks out to the event.
And also, I tried to take a picture with the Huey because my dad was on one in Vietnam and I didn't get the opportunity to do it because they were loading people up left and right. So
should have paid for the ride.
I should have paid for the ride. I know.
No complaint.
I hope those food vendors said thank you to you, Cameron, because one of our friends stood in line for 45 minutes to get food and then waited an hour for the food. So we could use a lot more food vendors, but I bet you they made good bank. So
Absolutely. So we did have, we had an additional, I believe, 4 vendors that actually canceled on us last minute that did not show up. That led to long lines, but definitely I think after this year, after the crowds they saw, we'll get some more vendors next year to help
Absolutely.
alleviate that.
Send them the video.
And absolutely, we've got some pictures and some videos. I think
those
they'll,
lines never stopped.
Nope.
I'm glad we had water there.
And just word of mouth. That advertising by itself is it's gonna be. You better be ready next year.
yes.
Is there a point where we'll know like how much revenue your air show brought in?
Absolutely. So we do already know the revenue numbers. We generated $54,000 in total revenue between sponsorships and ticket sales. But we'll have actual numbers on expenditures and everything to bring to council here soon.
That is amazing. And that doesn't even count food vendors, what they made and
In hotels where the
Right.
pilots stayed and the effect of people maybe going back into town and doing stuff. So there's a lot of things that go into it. for sure.
Walmart was packed. I'll tell you, couldn't find a parking spot that day.
And first of all, thank you for recognizing the event and the work. I mean, Cameron's been amazing. And I would just want to remind council that a year ago at this time, we had some rather disappointing comments regarding the parade, which the city was not involved with at that time. And so Ms. Embeck and some of her employees came up with some ideas, worked with Cameron to kind of combine some things. And so again, I remind you of where we were a year ago, where we are this year, and what a difference there was between those 2 years and the way the events went off. Staff put a lot of time and effort to make that happen and improve it. And again, I think as the mayor said on a number of occasions, we're just getting started. We'd like to continue on. We got great comments at the dinner. People were just really excited about everything. I got great comments at the event. And it's really nice to see the community turning out to an event and something that they more or less normally wouldn't think about. The airport of someplace where families would go, but it's not just a place where we can do economic development. It's a place where families can go and have a good time And I think this past weekend proved that we can do that. So thank you for recognizing all their efforts. I do appreciate it.
And you don't, let me just say one other thing. That announcer, he was fantastic. The way he described the plane, you know, everything he knew. He gave so much information that when I got home and I was watching a war movie, put it to it. I saw that one. It was good.
And I got one more request. Cameron, I want to see you jump out with a parachute.
Mick and I will work on that. I know that was
Okay.
something he was talking about too.
Okay, that's what I want to see next.
Okay.
Mayor, and I'm hoping that we can build on the recognition of the natives. That
Absolutely.
I think we got an idea that we've got a lot of culture and lost history to still learn from them. Hopefully, it is an event that we can build on.
I agree. And we'll be working on that as well.
That'd be fun to have like a whole weekend thing, almost like Merry Main Street, where they come in and make their food and do their dances and let people go down there because we really don't go down there. He's right. We don't really know much about each other. And my gosh, I've lived here my whole entire life and still don't know enough about them. I sat here in shame. I was like, I feel awful. I don't know very much about them. I don't know very many. I was like, that's awful. They're our neighbors. So that could be a really fun
We're working
weekend.
on it. We are. And we even had
You
money
go,
in the
Arnold.
budget.
You
So
go.
there you go. So yeah, we had planned on trying to do something. Communication, as our city clerk can tell you, is sometimes difficult, but I think we made some contacts. I know Chairman Rambler and I exchanged contact information. So again, it opened the door for further communication. So it's just a start, and we're excited about doing that and celebrating their culture as well, right? So we're working on it.
That's pretty cool.
And speaking to that, if everyone could stay after the council meeting and sign the proclamation for me. They finally got the last revision of it today, so I have the proclamation, 12 copies to give to them. We'll be framing it to honor the proclamation, and I'll mail them out to their council. But I do need signatures, so get your hand ready. 12 copies.
You got my portable hand signature, right? Okay.
No, sign.
Okay, then what, any other announcements? Then we'll move on to item number 19, request for future agenda items. Anybody have any?
We still have some pending, I guess, that we're gonna bring back already.
Yes. Yeah, the 2 work session items, we can bring back some stuff on.
Okay. We'll move on to item number 20, it's adjourn.
I make the motion, we adjourn.
We have a motion?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. Thank you, everybody.